Okay, so this is the project, the Art Nouveau Typography, where we're using our initials and words that describe us, which are also known as adjectives. I've got some pre-made samples over here, but I'm kind of going to go through the process. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my initials, okay? So I'm going to do an incursive P, and I want it to be big. And I'm going to try to draw a little darker so y'all can see it, but y'all need to do this lightly until you figure out what your main drawing is going to be. So I got my P, and then I'm going to do an S that overlaps, and it's probably my most important because it's my last name. And I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to put my middle initial up here because that's where I want it. And notice that I have filled up this pretty well. Okay, now this is a single line thickness. Now I need to show you how to go back and make it a double line thickness. So I'm just going to go through and kind of mimic what I see. You have to decide which is overlapping here. And you'll erase what you don't want to be seen. And I'm going to make this a double thickness. S's are a little trickier. I'm going to go through here. Like that. I'm going to continue this thickness up here. And then I'm going to erase what shouldn't be there. Notice I'm still overlapping. So I got my three initials and I'm overlapping. I still need to make this double thickness. I want it to look like it's resting on this. Continue this right here. I want this to overlap here. And then I'm going to erase what shouldn't be there. Now I'm drawing dark so y'all can see this, but if you can see, you can still see my pencil line, so you need to do it lightly. And if you'll remember in Art 1, I told you to hold your pencil up here, so you're not pressing down as much, because you want it to, you want to be able to erase where you can. Okay, so those are your letters done in double thickness. Now I've got my bigger drawing right here. Once you have this drawing done, this is my bigger drawing, then you're going to go through and put in, I came up with as many adjectives as I possibly could find that I feel like represent me. So I have content, lovable, dedicated, clumsy, forgetful, ornery, talkative, faithful, funny, artistic, teachable, caring, goofy, loyal, and supportive. So if you'll notice, all of the negative space, and we'll talk about negative space when I introduce the project, all of the negative space is filled with words, and you'll notice that each word fits nicely in the picture. In other words, lovable isn't just written in here. Okay? It is touching the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to show you how I did this. First, I'm just going to draw it with a single line. Okay, that's my L. I'm making sure the O touches the top and the bottom of that space. See, top and bottom. Now I want my V to go down and touch. I think I'll let it end here. And then I'm going to let my E go up and touch the top. Circle back around here. Come back up. Then I'm going to have my A. And then I'm going to have my B. Then I'm going to have my L, and I want it to look like this, and I want my L to be right there. And then my E. Okay? See how it touches the top and the bottom. Now I've got to go back and make them all double thickness. So I'm just going to mimic what I put there. Let it run into this O. Put a little O inside the big O. Put a small V inside the big V. This one will be a little more difficult. So I'm going to go through. Alright, here's my A. I'm going to go through. It's a skinny A. This B might take a little bit more work. B. I think I'm going to erase this and let them just connect right here so it'll be double thickness. And I think I want my B just to hug this A. Like that. And then here's my L. I'm going to let it run into my E. Let this come back up and curl. See how I did that? Now I think I have faithful written right here. I'll do one more where you can see how I fill up the letters. So I'm going to want my F. Notice how I'm making them touch the top and the bottom, except for I didn't do that with my, I need to do that with my I. Some of my letters I like to make them lowercase, some I like to make them uppercase. I'm going to do a lowercase h here. Like I said, you will need to draw lightly on yours because you're going to be doing a lot of erasing. Notice I'm still touching the top and the bottom of that space. So, yeah, that's how you spell faithful. Now I got to go back and make them double thickness. So I'm going to use this part right here as part of my double thickness. I want this to go all the way and touch my A. Just mimic this. Erase what should not be there. Okay, I'm going to go through and make this double thickness by outlining what I see. I want it to touch my A. So you just kind of have to move your lines over so that it is filling it up nicely. Okay? Then you would go through and fill up all the other space. Now I've gone to this part, and you can see how that looks at this point. Now, I want to show you how to use the Sharpies. If you bear down, let me get a scratch piece of paper. Obviously, oh, there goes my pencil. If you bear down hard, you're going to get a thicker line. If you hold it up here, you're going to get a thinner line. If you hold it on its side, you're going to get a thicker line. Okay? So this is holding on its side, this is bearing down a little bit more, and this is barely touching the paper. Okay? Then we have our thin Sharpie, and that's barely touching the paper. I mean, that's touching the paper, and this is barely touching the paper. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thicknesses there. Okay? Now, that being said, I tried to make it look like on this one that the heavier line, the heaviest lines, are kind of like a cast shadow sort of under the letters, the main letters, my initials. Right here, under this S, under this side, under this side. So I went through and made those thicker, okay? And then on my smaller words, I made those thinner lines as well. So I want you to pay special and close attention to how thick you make the lines. The more variety of line thicknesses you have, the better it's going to look. I was just going to give you an idea how I did this. I knew I wanted this to look like it's a cast shadow coming down, so I'm going to use the side of my point right there, and I'm going to use the side of my point right there, and then I can gradually pick it up where it's not as thicker. And if I want that to be thicker, I'll go back and make it thicker. I probably want this to be a little thicker. Now I'm using more of just the point now. I'm using more of just the point now on this side. Same for right here. Just the point here. And then I want it to gradually get thicker as I come around the bottom of this, so it'll look like maybe it's a cast shadow coming down, or where you could see the bottom edge of it. And if I want it to be thicker, then I'll go through and make it thicker. On my smaller letters, I just went through and outlined with my thinner marker. If you want to use a little bit thicker marker, you can. It just depends on what you want it to look like. Okay? So when you're done, it should get to this point. Okay? Now, we are going to do this in tints and shades of one color, and that's called a monochromatic color scheme. I got my color pencils, and I gave each one of you a blending colorless pencil. These things are magic, okay? So I want you to choose tints and shades of one color. If you add black to a color, it will be a tint. If you add white to a color, which we're not going to add white, well, we will, but we're just going to add the white of the paper. I'm looking for my black. You're going to need a black color pencil. You're going to use a color of your choosing. I think I might use blue. I don't know which color blue I want to use. Blue, and then you have your colorless pencil. Okay? For now, the only colors we're going to have are the background, which is the negative space in between the letters, okay? I want it to look like there's a cast shadow coming under each letter, and you've got to determine where the light source is coming from. My light source is coming from this way, shining this way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this, and I like to use the side of my pencil point, and I'm adding black, and I want you to see that I'm taking the pressure off the pencil and getting lighter as I come down. See how I did a value scale of that? I bared down some up here at the top, and I gradually got lighter. Then I'm going to use my blue, and I'm going to shade over it. Now you can use whatever color you want. It's just got to be tints and shades of one color. So this right here is the colorless blending pencil. And if you take it and you just shade as hard as you want to over it, it makes it nice and bold and fills in all the little white areas. Okay? Now I'm going to color, let you see how I color a little bit more of this. I want it to still be a little darker under here. I'm going to gradually get lighter as I go this way. This is going to create a shadow under here, and a shadow under here, and a little bit of a shadow right here. Okay? I also want a shadow under my O right here. So you got to think about where the colors are. Okay, so I'm going to go back over my black that I just used with my blue. Just like that. And then use your colorless blender. Don't lose this colorless blender because you're going to be using this a lot when we do use our color pencils throughout the semester. Oh, I forgot to put blue over this. So this is going to make it pop. You want to try to stay inside the lines. And this is how you do it. Okay, so then you will continue coloring the rest of it using tints and shades of that one color that you chose. Any questions? Well, that's kind of not really cool because there's nobody on the other end of this. Okay,